Hello students, it's Dr. Yu. In this lecture, I want to talk about worst case scenarios with public speaking. Specifically, there are some things that can occur when you're giving a speech that just might be a bad case scenario for you. Often, these are the root causes of speech anxiety, is people feeling like one of these worst case scenarios is going to happen. So what I've done here is I've quickly put together some slides to discuss some of these worst case scenarios and how you can handle them. Because if you feel like you can handle these worst case scenarios, then you'll be more likely to feel confident when they happen, and they won't be such a big deal to you. So I'm going to cover 5 different worst case scenarios that can happen when you're giving a speech, and I'll give solutions for each of the 5. First, probably the biggest one, is forgetting your lines. Now, if you forget your lines, just take a pause. So you're in the middle of your speech and then you remember this other part and then you keep going. So just take a pause, give yourself a second, couple seconds to remember, and then get back to where you were. But secondly, in some classes, depending on the public speaking class that you're taking, at least in mine, you're allowed to have a note card in your back pocket that if you do have some kind of brain flub, you just quickly pull out your note card, and all you have to do, it's hard for me to show it, but just pull out your note card from your pocket, just 1 second, and look at it, and then put it back in your pocket, and then just go back into what you were doing. There you go. Your emergency note card can easily save you because it'll help you prompt your memory, and you just have like a little outline on your note card with just little prompts on it, and that can help you. And it's not a big deal. You don't have to say sorry, just now, blah, 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 blah. Okay, good. So just take the note card out, look at it, and then come back to where you were. Thirdly, you can have a spotter. I know at least in my class in public speaking, you can have somebody who has an outline of your speech or the whole speech written out, depending on how you prepared for it. And your spotter can help you cue you if you run out somewhere. So you're talking and then your spotter can fill in the blank, if you will. So there's always that as well. Lastly, you can ad-lib it. Sometimes if you just forget something, just do a little improv and talk about what you think you were going to talk about, or just fill in the gap or the space with something that will help you cue your memory, maybe a joke or something or a quick story, and then that'll buy you some time to remember it, and then you fill in that little blank. And then lastly, you can just make a joke. If you forget what your lines was, you can always make up some joke about how you're getting old, or, man, it was that important, I almost forgot what it was called, that kind of thing. And it's totally fine. But at the end of the day, depending on the speaking situation that you're in, if you're in a contest or if you're just giving a presentation, you have all of these options to help you prepare for possibly forgetting your lines. At least in class, you can always have the emergency note card or the spotter. But worst case scenario, you're in a contest, just take that pause or just ad-lib it and you'll be fine. Secondly, the next worst case scenario is your microphone failing. So this is more or less a technical failure, and it's happened to me too. My mic fell off my ear, my little earpiece, in a contest. So that was a big deal for a contest. So number one, you can always ask for another mic. So if your mic dies, usually there's going to be some MC or technical person who should have an extra mic on backup for these specific situations, and just grab another mic. You can also just ask for some quick maintenance. I wouldn't try to talk if the microphone's squealing and all that stuff. So just ask for some quick maintenance on it, and somebody can help you figure it out. Worst case scenario, and this is what I had to do when my mic fell, was just project. I have a loud enough voice to where I can fill a room pretty well. Now, if it was like a stadium of people, which it wasn't, then yeah, I would have to definitely rely on a mic. But if you think your voice can carry, and you've done good vocal variety exercises and have practiced speaking from the diaphragm, projecting really isn't a problem for you. It'll just strain your voice after a while, but if depending on the length of the speech, that might not be a bad trade-off. And then reduce proximity. If you lose your mic, try to reduce your proximity between you and the audience, so that way when you do project, they can hear you a little bit better, and that'll also help you for that issue. Now, what if your PowerPoint fails? That's another thing, especially when we do persuasive PowerPoints in our classes. Well, it depends on what the type of failure it is. If something doesn't show properly, or if your PowerPoint projector stops working, so you couldn't even get the projector to work, those are all kind of different. But number one, of course, you can always improvise, and just one thing that one of my professors did in graduate school, he taught a large lecture of persuasive comm class, and one time his PowerPoint didn't work. He started making jokes about, here is my slides, and then he'd just like pretend the slide says this, and then like he kind of made those jokes throughout, and it actually worked with the students. The students understood, and he was very good natured about it, and it worked. Secondly, probably the biggest thing I usually tell people, if something goes wrong in the PowerPoint, let's say a video doesn't play, or an animation didn't happen the way you wanted it to, or something just didn't go right. Or let's say you're doing a demonstration of some kind and the demonstration didn't go the way that you wanted it to. Here's what you do. You just say, here's what would have happened. When I click this, it would have shown this. Or if the video doesn't work, well, here's what the video would have shown. The video would have shown you the process of making aluminum foil. You would have saw that there were 3 steps, this step, that step, and that step. And you would have seen how cool it is to watch saran wrap go from liquid to metal. Okay, there you go. Just, if something bad happens and it doesn't happen the way you want, just say, here's what would have happened, and then move on. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to go into a diatribe about how you're not technically illiterate and all that stuff. But just say what would have happened. Well, here's what was supposed to happen, and then just move on to the next point, like as if it did happen. And then thirdly, you can use handouts. Now, I usually recommend handouts at the end of a PowerPoint because you don't want to steal your thunder. If it's absolutely essential, though, that people see the visual aids because you're displaying numbers and quantitative graphs and charts that are essential for proving your point, that would be one of those case scenarios then where I would probably want to do the handouts during the presentation. Now, of course, that's going to allow people to read ahead. You're going to have issues with audience attention management and losing all the suspense that you've built and all that stuff. But that might be an okay trade-off if that means, if it's between that and not having any PowerPoint and nobody believing anything you're saying because there's no charts, graphs, numbers, or essential visual data that you need to prove your point. Now, another scenario is, what if you're doing a Q&A and somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer? Okay, so maybe somebody just is really smart and they just ask this really intelligent question and it's just kind of over your head, or they just ask a question and you just don't know. Like, you just didn't think to prepare for that. Okay, here's what you can do. There's a couple things you can do. First, state what you do know. So if somebody asks you a question about your product, and let's just say they ask something about the technical specifications that in the manufacturing process, and you know nothing about the manufacturing process of your product. Let's just say you just haven't thought about it that deeply. You just think about the benefits and the features and all those things, and you just haven't thought about manufacturing that much. State what you do know. Well, here's what I do know. I do know that this product is 100%, natural, and it's made of steel, and it's made of this grade of steel, something like that. Okay, so just state what you do know, and then state what you don't know. Okay, now I don't know the exact manufacturing process. Now, you can offer a tentative answer and qualify it, but I do think it comes from, a couple of different supply chains in Malaysia and China and so forth, but it is assembled in the United States, but I can check on the specific locations if you want. Okay, so you offer a tentative answer and you qualify it. So you basically say, here's what I think it is, but I don't know for sure, but it's likely this. And then you can also offer an answer later. So you can do all three. You can say, but I'm not sure, so let me look into that and I will email you with that response. Or let me consult with a couple of people and I'll have an answer for you next time. So just offer to give an answer later and just say you're going to look it up or you're going to find out that information and you'll get it back to them. And then the key thing is to actually find out the information and to actually get it back to them. So don't use it as a way to just like get out of a bad situation, but use it as a way to then keep your bridge and to keep your word and then do what you need to do. This happens to me. I'm a professor, and sometimes a student asks a great question that I don't know the answer to. I just haven't thought about it. So, that's a great question. I think it would be this, but I'm not 100% sure. But let me look that up, and I'll bring it up next class. I think that's a great question. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And then just move on. You don't have to say sorry. You don't have to feel embarrassed. You do the intelligent thing. You state what you don't know. You say that you're going to look it up. You're going to do some research, and then you're going to come back. Lastly, what about low turnout? I've seen this happen before. We had a politician in the Kansas House of Representatives when I was an undergrad come to our college, and she was there was this big auditorium with like 100 seats in it, and only 5 people showed up to her event. Now, what she did was really, really smart. So first, she didn't comment on it. She didn't say like, geez, where is everybody? How come nobody's here? You know, that kind of thing. And she wasn't upset at all. She seemed very happy and all that. Then she also appreciated all who came. So she was like, I'm really glad you all made it. I know it's 6 o'clock in the evening on a Wednesday and there's a lot of things people can be doing at this time. It's the middle of the week. And that was cool. So she made us feel really special. But here's what she really did. That was awesome. She increased her audience engagement techniques, number one, by making it more of like a discussion, because she had planned on giving like a keynote style speech where she was going to talk and then answer questions. But she made it more of like a conversation in terms of how she spoke, and made it more individual by getting us involved and asking for our perspectives on things, which was cool. And then the really cool thing that she did also was she rearranged the room. So what she did was she just, instead of speaking from the lectern on a stage and then like 5 people in like an auditorium seats, she just got some seats on the stage and she did a little like circle, like we did a little group circle with like 6 people, like us 5 and then her. And we just had like a small group style discussion / lecture from her. But then it was more engaging because I'm in this small little circle with her, as opposed to like sitting in this auditorium like 30 feet away from her, but there's all this empty space around me, you know? So reducing the proximity and rearranging the stage to just turn it into a small group type discussion made it way better. And all of us left really liking her and was like, yeah, we'll vote for her, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's what you really want to think is, if it's not looking like it's going to be a public speaking context or a public speaking situation, then just turn it into a small group interaction situation and rearrange the room, move the people around, and just make it that, and then make it more engaging that way. So those are 5 things that you can do, or at least 5 different scenarios that can happen when you speak. And these are all immediate solutions that you can apply to deal with those worst case scenarios. As long as you have a plan, you can handle almost any situation, and you'll feel less anxious if you know that if X happens, I'll just do Y. If this happens, I'll just do this. Or if that happens, I'll just do this. You know, that kind of thing. It helps a lot. So with that said, I want you all to go out there and be excellent speakers.